Big one tomorrow night against the Lions for the Packers. But first, here on All 22, we've got to go back and take a look at some of the key plays. There are some themes here that we've kind of talked about throughout the course of the show, in some of these plays here, Chu, that I want to talk about this week. So the first one we start with here is a play in the red zone. What we're going to be looking at with a touchdown to Jayden Reed. We've said we wanted to see a little bit more creativity. We've said we want to see more success in the red zone, and we certainly get it. I don't know if this is the most creative play call necessarily, but it's off of play action, which I think opens up things for Jayden Reed.
Yeah, this is something they must have seen on film because, I mean, Jayden gets open. I don't think the corner did a great job, even though he was in position to do it. But when you look at it, look at Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft makes a nice swim move on one of the defenders, and that was probably the throw. This is just simple. We've had this play in even when I played. It's 64 U corner halfback flat. And then it just with Reed taking the place of the halfback. But just watch this swim move.
Are you talking about that's Wicks? Yeah, you talking about Wicks there? Yep.
Does a nice job. That's actually the throw because if you look at this, there is a chance that if that DB had half a brain, he could undercut this route. And that's, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Very
he tries. So, makes the diving attempt.
It worked out. It's play action. It's just a two-person route, really. But I think here, Wicks might have been the throw. The throw to Reed was a little bit dangerous.
Yeah. We're able to complete it, but you like to see that guys getting open in the red zone. This is also something now we've talked about, play number 2 of the defensive line. Can they get pressure with 4? If you start diving into that Lions matchup, teams that have been able to do that, the Bears were able to do it, which is what slowed down the Lions in the second half on that game on Thanksgiving. That's something that can slow down that offense. So can the Packers get pressure with 4? We looked at Lucas Van Ness's sack last week. What do you see on Lucas Van Ness's sack from this game against the Dolphins?
Well, he's just the left tackle is very slow-footed. He does a nice job setting the edge on the guy, and we've talked about Lucas, how he is a high motor player. He didn't have him initially, but he kept playing and eventually got to him. Great sack, making progression. I'd just like to see a little more in the way of moves. He needs to develop a secondary move because if you remember, Gabe, both of these sacks these last 2 weeks were the same move. Mm-hmm. Same move.
Just kind of into him. And then,
so he's got to develop it's kind of like one-on-one in basketball when you get to that point because all the left tackle really cares about every game he goes into is blocking the defensive end. So it's kind of like, all right, we're giving you the ball, Lucas, here. Do whatever you want. I understand he has to keep gap integrity. He's got to be very careful about coming inside that guy, but there's ways to still come inside that tackle and maintain gap integrity. So that's the next step I'd like to see. He's very good at this, setting the edge and making the play. He just needs to develop a secondary move.
So also in this game, the Packers' overall run numbers were pretty good. They got over 100 yards as a team. Now, the run numbers for Josh Jacobs weren't fantastic, but with his runs kind of between the tackles, does it open up something like it did? This was a run later in the first half for Emmanuel Wilson, and just kind of let me know what you see, how the Packers blocked this one up, as it was one of the more explosive plays they had in the run game.
It's a nice run. It's heavy strength left, and they're coming back across the grain here, as we used to call it. Hopefully a number 11, I don't even know how he plays in this league. This is kind of embarrassing because his gap, I mean, if you watch the DN, he's slanting inside, takes himself out of the play, which lines it up for 11. Now, the nice thing is Detroit is decimated by injuries on defense. So hopefully they have a handful of number 11 playing because it's not really the blocking scheme when you think about it. It's just and for instance, this guy's gap is
how
gap because you have the guy pinching down.
Yeah.
So it's not really. It's a great run, but Miami makes it a lot easy for you, and hopefully with their backups playing in Detroit, we see a little bit of this week.
So this was another defensive play. This was kind of a big one. So these end up being back-to-back plays because I think these are the two plays, Chewy, that really ended the game, really, and made sure that Miami, just didn't feel great heading into halftime. So it's fourth down. It's a little bit of a tighter game. Miami knows they're getting the ball coming out of the half. It's kind of a no man's land here, right? They don't feel comfortable in the cold weather, kicking a 55, 56-yard field goal. So they end up going for it here. What does the Packers defense do? Or are there some concerns that maybe they should have going into the game against Detroit?
Well, they're showing blitz, which they've been doing the last couple of weeks. I mean, it forces Tua possibly to change the protection. This is just cover three. That's as simple as it is. It's a very safe protection. Four-man rush. I'm not sure who the top guy is, but he forces Tua to step up and probably throw that ball earlier than he wants. I mean, the receiver was open. It's just the pressure. This is what they need, Gabe. The pressure's got to cause the quarterback to throw errant balls, right? You don't need a sack every time, but that quarterback needs to feel the pressure. 57, who I think, he's a very good change-up pass rusher, does that, and Tua throws a poor ball. So it's not always about the sacks. It's more about pressures a lot of time and getting the quarterback to throw an inaccurate ball, which essentially that was.
And then this ends up being, to me, Chewy, a pretty easy completion. So I'm not quite sure what the Dolphins were necessarily doing here, but so many times in the 2 minute, you hear about that first play, right? Okay, you get that first completion in the 2 minute, whether it's at the end of the first half, second half, and that's what gets you some momentum. I mean, this is the play. Like if this ends up being an incomplete pass because there's only 30 seconds or so left in the half, maybe Matt LaFleur goes, all right, let's just take a knee. Let's go into the locker room with the lead that we have. Instead, they're able to steal 3 points because they got the stop. And on the very next play, they're able to get this play to Tucker Kraft.
Well, all right. So Jordan Love knows it's a four-man rush and they're dropping 7, right? Mm-hmm. So I believe that this is a product of the poor interceptions he's thrown at the beginning of the year where LaFleur says, look, they're rushing 4, they're dropping 7. Don't force it down the field. We have plenty of time because all Tucker Kraft here is a check down. He's an afterthought. He's probably the 4th read on this play. So he's chipping the DN and just leaking out into the flat. And with his athletic ability, he turns what should be, a 7-yard gain into a 14-yard gain. But good job by him with the yaks, the yard after catch. But great by Jordan Love, recognizing that the defense isn't going to give him anything down the field, and there's nothing wrong with what he thinks is a 7-yard gain that turns into a 14-yard gain. That's just a great play, I believe, by Jordan, and it shows that he's learning. He doesn't have to take big bites, especially when he gets into 2 minutes, force it down the field because there's plenty of time, and it's just a great play by Kraft and Jordan Love, and good protection along with it.
Yeah, maybe we see that more of that, making sure you get those balls in the playmakers' hands. They can make it, make those runs after a catch as well. It was a good week for the Packers last week against the Dolphins. We'll see if it's another good one for them against the Lions as they'll be playing on Thursday night this week.